Ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
About time.
Good evening. Welcome to the June 1st, 2023 meeting of the Southampton Town Zoning Board of Appeals. This meeting is being held live and also via video conferencing in accordance with the Town Board's enactment of Local Law Number 14 of 2022, adopted on May 24th, 2022. Our next meeting and those following will be held in person here at Town Hall and will also continue to allow for remote participation. So we ask you to continually check the town's website for updates and any new information. If you wish to view tonight's live meeting only, please do not join the Zoom meeting and instead go to the town's website. With that, I would ask that you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For those of you who are here with us tonight in person, in case of an emergency evacuation, please exit through the rear doors of this room to one of the staircases across the hall and continue downstairs and out through the main entrance. Please do not attempt to use the elevators during an emergency evacuation. In case of a medical emergency, the automated external defibrillator and first aid kit are both located in the hallway on this floor opposite the elevator. Restrooms are located across the hall. We will be starting this meeting with the public hearings. We have applicants and members of the public here with us live and also standing by via Zoom webinar, which is being moderated by CTV. CTV will mute the speakers on Zoom until it is their time to give testimony before the board. Please be patient. If you find that you are having difficulties accessing the hearings, please visit the town clerk's meeting portal and click on the instructions link. Please silence your cell phones and refrain from speaking to one another in the boardroom as it interferes with our recording equipment. Tonight we have board members Helen Burgess and Susan Kern, who both will be participating remotely via Zoom. A reminder that applicants, agents, and members of the public speaking, other than attorneys, will be sworn in, will state their address for the record, and will offer their testimony as it relates to the application before the board. Before handing in any submissions to the board tonight, please make sure that the documents identify the ZBA application name and tax map number. The application name should also be written on your certified receipts. Unless otherwise stated at the end of each hearing, all of these applications will remain open for written comments for all purposes until a date to be announced after the hearing. Those comments can be addressed to the members of the board and sent via email, mail, and/or dropped off at Town Hall to the board's secretary, Candace Cowell. With that, I'd ask for a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Oops. Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess. Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Minutes are approved. And now on to adjournments.
Okay. As far as the agenda is concerned, item 1 is 17 Bishop's Lane, 17 Bishop LLC, 17 Bishop's Avenue in West Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-358-1-21. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the Town Code for a proposed one-story addition on a non-conforming lot. 330-115D1 continuance for a total side yard setback of 25.3 feet where 32 feet is existing, and 330-84D pyramid height for a total pyramid encroachment of 1,010 cubic feet on the north side of the dwelling. 280 feet of that is existing, and any other relief necessary. I'll move to adjourn this application to our 6:15.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the board has jurisdiction.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you move to adjourn it.
Okay. You want to do that, brother?
Second.
I'll move to adjourn that to our 6:15 meeting.
Second.
You want that?
Okay, Mr. Tudhill.
My stuff? Yeah.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Daly. Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess? Ms. Kern?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Okay, item 5 on the agenda is Eric J. Belfi and Tara Belfi, 106 Cold Spring Point Road in Tuckahoe, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-155-1-30. Applicant requests relief from Town Code 330-84D, Pyramid Law, for a sky plane encroachment of 1,904 cubic feet on the east side of the proposed two-story, one-family dwelling on a non-conforming lot, and any other relief necessary.
Okay.
Jurisdiction or what?
I believe this is a re-advertisement, is that correct?
No, they should.
Says new
Right,
application.
Community, send me a different letter.
Let me see.
We can't take questions.
See, I'm learning.
Yeah.
22 years later, I'm still learning.
No,
No,
you can't ask,
no,
we
no.
can't take questions right now.
First, we have to figure out whether we have jurisdiction or not.
Okay, board has jurisdiction, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, very good.
Okay, I'll move to adjourn this to our July 6th meeting.
Second.
Okay, before I take the vote, sir, if you want to come up, you have to come up to where there's a microphone.
He's gonna ask about a different application.
Oh, this is not about this application?
No, it's
Okay,
the one that you just ran through.
Adjourned.
It was adjourned, sorry.
it was adjourned.
Well, could you close this one first before he continues?
Yes, okay, go, hold on a second. Okay, all right, so we have a motion and a second. Okay, Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess. Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, so let's figure out so it was the prior application.
17
that was-
Bishop LLC.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
I got a letter in my mail saying this is the meeting,
I understand.
and I took time out of work. I drove 2 hours to be here on time for this meeting, and you just go through it and then just say adjourned? I don't understand what's going on.
Okay, so what is the reason that is being adjourned? Do we have a request from the applicant?
Yes, the agent, my understanding is the agent for the applicant and one of the attorneys are traveling. So I got an email this morning requesting the adjournment
Okay.
from
So-
Aaron's,
yeah.
Aaron's
So-
attorney is Office of First Coast.
So they're allowed to do that last minute, but I'm taking time out of my day, out of my work day to be here, and now you just roll through
Yeah.
because it's
Okay,
inconvenient to
well,
them?
well,
Because that actually was sent in the mail a week ago.
I understand, sir, okay? So when an agent or an attorney for an applicant has an application and they request an adjournment, we generally grant those requests. And if it turns out you have an application that's on the agenda for, a particular meeting night, like tonight, the only thing that we can say is that you can check with Candace, our secretary, to find out whether anything like this is going to happen. That's all I can tell you.
And I would have been calling whom, where, at what time this morning.
Ca-
So I should
Candace.
call every hour on the hour before this meeting goes off?
Okay, sir, I'm trying to give you information to be helpful.
No, I
okay?
know,
If you want
I know.
to take offense to it, that's your choice.
I'm not offense, I'm saying, for the next time I show up here and then you say it's adjourned,
On the day of the meeting, I would suggest that you contact
and
Candace.
when's the last hour before you will adjourn it?
They actually have up until 4 o'clock to submit. Because
Okay.
that's what time town hall closes. So that's up to 4 o'clock. They can submit an adjournment request.
Now, from my side, if I have an attorney and I say at 4 o'clock I'd like to adjourn it, even though, is that something I can do, or is this their thing?
It's, the applicant can adjourn the application, the attorneys or agents or neighbors can request an adjournment, and we will consider it, but that's what I can tell
And
you.
what are the considerations?
Okay, I'm not even getting into this at
Okay.
this point, okay? But I do appreciate, and I'm sorry that you were inconvenienced tonight. Okay.
Yeah, same application. Right, so we don't skip that.
Okay, I'm gonna move on here
Yep.
to Richard J. Flood and Marianne Stefano, 188 Noyak Avenue, Noyak, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-5-4-65. This is a holdover application, but I'm gonna move to adjourn it to our 6:15 meeting.
Second.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess. Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Okay, and then on the decision calendar, the following decisions will be rendered on June 15th. This is Leonard Family Irrevocable Trust, Robert and Gretchen Savage, Max New York Management, Dennis Schmidt, Barbara Rosenthal, Matthew Frank, Production Holdings LLC, and Lee Skolnick. Okay, those are all for 6:15.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
All right, I'm gonna move to reopen Dean W. Van Tassel.
Second.
Mr. Tuthill?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess? Ms. Kern?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Chair votes aye, reopened.
Okay, the reason I reopened it was to accept written submissions, and now I'm gonna move to close it for a determination later this evening.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, I will move to reopen Samir and Kelly Bhopal.
Second.
Mr. Tuthill?
All right,
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Ms. Kern?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess? Chair votes aye.
okay, now we're accepting the written submissions, and I will now move to close for a determination later this evening.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, the next one will be the Andrea Rothbort Family Irrevocable Trust. I'll move to reopen to accept written submissions.
Oh, second.
Mr. Tuthill?
All right,
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Ms. Kern?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess? Chair votes aye, reopened.
all right, now I'll move to close it with a determination later this evening.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
All right. Going back to the beginning of the agenda, item 2 is Jennifer and Lee McCabe, 11 Westwood Drive in Noyak, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-17-1-81. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the town code for a proposed new one-family, two-story dwelling on a non-conforming lot. 330-11, Residence District State dimensional regulations for a rear yard from 70 feet to 30 feet, and 330-84D Pyramid Law for an encroachment into the sky plane on the north side for 4,545 cubic feet, and any other relief necessary.
What is jurisdiction, Mr. Chairman?
I'm going to be recused from this hearing, please.
Okay. All right, we're all good, have jurisdiction? Okay. Good evening, Ms. Sepasuria. If you can state your name and address for the record.
Susanna Herman and Consultants, 1319 North Sea Road, Southampton.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Submission?
Thank you. You can tell us about the application.
Didn't see that going on. Which one's
This
this there?
property,
Oh,
I'll give Keith a moment to pass the pictures down.
Okay.
This property is located at 11 Westwood Drive in Noyak, which is just off of Noyak Road.
What? Yeah,
Taking the actions for,
Yeah.
evidences.
okay.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. The property is consists of 16,413 square feet in an R40 zoning district. It is adjacent to wetlands. Paynes Creek is bulkheaded, but we are subject to Southampton Conservation Board jurisdiction. There's an existing house that's there. The proposal is to remove that house and construct a new two-story, existing is two-story as well, but to construct a new dwelling in basically the same location. And as a result, we are going to need pyramid relief of 4,545 cubic feet of pyramid relief. And because of the location of the wetlands and trying to push as far back from the water as possible, we're requesting relief from the street setback, which is the rear yard, to 30 feet, where 35 feet is required. Because we need a wetlands permit, we can use section 330-83K to reduce the street setback or the rear setback from required 70 to 35, and we're requesting 5 additional feet of relief to 30. As you can see, it's a constrained lot. Not only is it undersized, but it also contains wetlands, and it's in a flood zone. The house is located in the AE7 flood zone. The proposed first floor elevation is 9.5, which is not very high above grade. The grade is about 8 to 8.5 feet, so we're not building way up high in the sky. The total height of the house is 27 feet. So it's not over height, it's below the allowable height. And further constraining the property is the fact that we have 5.3 feet to groundwater. So there's no basement allowed, because we're in a flood zone, so there's no basement allowed for that reason. And also the sanitary system takes up the entire southeastern corner of the property. So the house is in the only location that it can go. We pushed it to 10 feet from the side property line because that's the way to get the greatest setback from the way the bulkhead sort of juts in an L shape in the middle of the property, which creates hardship that way. We're 41.3 feet from the bulkhead with the proposed deck and 47.8 to the house, which is about the same as the existing structure, but we've tried to push farther back with the majority of the structure, but those corners are about equal.
What's the ceiling heights?
The ceiling heights. Bear with me, I know it's on here.
Yeah, I thought I read that it was 8. No.
I think that's right.
I know you're constrained and everything, but
Yep.
So yeah, it is 8 feet ceiling heights,
8 feet?
correct.
You knock it down to 5?
Crawl spaces.
raised up because of the flood zone?
Is it,
A
yeah, is it
little bit.
raised?
It's raised only a little bit. We're in 87, we're required to be therefore at 9. We're only half a foot above that.
Yeah, so there isn't much movement here in
constrained, you know
terms
what
of
I
what can
mean?
be done.
It's
I
constrained.
mean,
It's-
That's what it's all about.
It's also a modest-sized house. The interior square footage is 3,000 and change. And it's a weird-shaped lot. We're really pushed into the corner.
Yeah, yeah. And, we haven't had one of these in a while, but when we have them, we understand that the applicant is complying with other agencies in order to be able to build a house. And when you have a significantly burdened property like this one, there's just no movement, so there's nowhere to go. So in those circumstances, we often have more leniency in terms of pyramid relief than we normally would have. So the reason Keith asked about the ceiling heights is to make sure there wasn't anything that could be done to reduce the amount of pyramid relief, because we don't normally want it to be over 3,000 to 4,000. But sometimes there's just no way around it other than building a smaller house, building a one-story house, which I would imagine is not something that the applicant would want to do.
And I should point out, there are many two-story houses in the neighborhood. It's an older neighborhood. It was developed in the mostly late 60s, early 70s, and the houses are slowly being, one by one, replaced with, larger homes.
Yeah, right.
And I should point out that there's also a buffer, a non-disturbance buffer that takes up the whole waterfront.
Yeah.
And a lot of screening, as you can see in my photographs, along the street. There's a very mature hedge, and also along the side property line.
Okay. Have you heard from any of the neighbors?
I have not.
Okay. Okay. The main neighbor that's, I think, impacted here is the neighbor to the east. Appears to be the neighbor to the east.
It's north.
Yes. Is it north?
Yes.
North. I stand corrected, north. Okay, so we'll see if that neighbor is here, has someone here on his or her behalf. So, okay, in the meantime, any other questions of members of the board? Is-
I have some questions.
Sure.
I see ceiling heights a little bit differently. I see 9 feet and 10 feet. Why am I reading that incorrectly?
That's not the interior.
It's the last page of the plans. Do you see what I'm seeing?
I do see what you're saying. Yeah, I stand corrected. I think you're correct.
All right, so it's not 8 feet, it's 9 feet and 10 feet.
See if you can get them down to 8 feet. See what it is then.
It's 9 and 8.
The other thing I wanted to ask you, Suzanne, I went out to the property. How tall is the existing house now? Do you know? It's quite tall.
It is quite tall. I don't think I have plans for the existing house. Let me check real quick, maybe I do.
But if not, you could follow
I
that up in a written
can
submission.
find out. I can find
So
out.
the reason I'm asking is that there was some concern from the neighbor about, their sun being, blocked and air and stuff like that. And the existing house is quite tall, so I just wanted to know what the comparison was.
Okay, I can look into that.
But, based on the ceiling heights, maybe we could make some reductions.
Right. Thank you for pointing that out, Susan.
Yeah, I was looking at the wrong thing. I apologize.
I accept your apology.
I swore to tell the truth.
Yeah.
I know you did.
Okay, so I guess we'd like you to speak with the
Okay.
applicant about what can be done to reduce the ceiling heights and as a result, reduce the pyramid relief. And I realize this may, involve a lot because there are other agencies involved, but we have to ask for the minimum relief.
If it's just reducing ceiling heights, we wouldn't have to go back to any other agencies.
Okay.
So.
Good. Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Now, the only other observation I had is that there are quite tall trees separating the two properties, so there's a lot of vegetation there already.
Right. I think I did mention that, and it does show in the photos, which you wouldn't have with you, but if you went to the site, you would see that. There's a lot of vegetation, and not just there's a hedge, but there's also some tall cedar trees.
Very tall trees, yeah.
Yeah, so which we would leave. We would protect those and make sure those stay.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Anybody in the audience?
Yes, is there anyone who's here in the boardroom who would like to be heard in connection with the application of McCabe? This is for property located at 11 Westwood Drive in Noyak. Is there anyone who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application for, again, 11 Westwood Drive in Noyak? If you're waiting to be heard on Zoom, this will be the time to let us know by raising your hand.
No one on Zoom.
No one on Zoom, okay. All right, if not, Susan, it's yours. I guess the question then becomes, do we want Susanna to come back with a revised plan?
I would like her to come back with a revised, I mean, that's just me, but I would like her to come back with a revised consideration of reducing the ceiling heights and also some information about the existing house that's there.
I agree with Susan.
I would support that.
Yep.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay,
When you want to come back?
I think we could do this by the next meeting.
9 and 8.
Okay, if that's
First
the
meeting in
case.
December?
In December?
well, we have 12 on,
That's up to you.
if we, on 6:15.
Oh, actually, I'm not here at 6:15.
Oh, you're not
so
here
the
at
one- the one after. Yeah, thank you.
And then the next one is 7.
That's the next
The
meeting?
next one is 7:6, which is pretty full, but
That one's pretty cool.
that was
I
pretty
will be
full.
so quick.
Well, you might be a late night, so if you're willing
I'll be
to
at the end, right?
spend some time here with us, that's fine. Okay,
7-6,
7:06.
7, 6.
magic number.
Okay, Okay, then I would like to keep this application open and adjourn it to 7/6.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Kern,
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill,
Aye.
Mr. Leonard. Aye. Mr. Macedonia.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Mr. Daly had recused himself, and I vote aye. And thank you so much. Have a good rest of your
All
day.
right, so the
Thank you.
next,
Oh, we got one more. Okay,
that's
see you
right.
again, sir.
next item on the agenda is Charles Truns III, 98 South Road in West Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-358-3-21.1. Applicant requests relief from Town Code 330-11, Residence District Dimensional Regulations for an accessory side yard setback of 30 feet to 21.2 feet for a proposed pool, and an accessory side yard setback from 30 feet to 19.6 feet for a proposed pool house, and a non-conforming lot and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening. Just have to swear you in. You can state your name and address for the record, please.
Steve Computer, 120 Mill Road, West Hampton.
Yes?
This is the case.
Oh, with the issue with the, okay, so, well, Helen, why don't you have me swear him in, and then we'll talk about that?
No problem.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. You can state your name and address.
Steve Computer, 120 Mill Road, West Hampton Beach, New York.
Okay, and do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, Helen?
Mr. Computer, is that right?
Yes.
I went to the property, and there is no official sign for people in the neighborhood to know of the event this evening. So as that is the case, I would need you to put the sign up and give it at least 10 days before the adjourned date, assuming that the board agrees with me that this case should be adjourned with the proper notification to the neighbors.
My turn.
Okay, well, why don't you tell us what happened?
The sign was posted on the property, and I can show you a picture from Friday, May, let me get the exact date on it, so I can tell you. I was there, I was with the contractor, and I can show you the picture of where it was posted. I know that the sign was there as of Saturday afternoon, because I drove by. Not specifically looking for the sign, I just was pointing out to somebody that was a project. The picture and posting was done Friday, May 19th, 2023 at 9:58 a.m., and that's the picture of it. And it shows the mailbox, it shows, and the
It's
only
on a
change.
tree there to the
Yeah,
left.
the only change that occurred from this picture was there, you'll see there are some branches in front of it. We cut the branches down so that we have visibility both ways on South Road.
Is there a way to email that picture to the board? Do we have that capability?
I only found out about it when I got here, but I can get this to you whenever you want.
Or you can get it to Candace, and then Candace can
Yeah,
get it to us.
absolutely.
Helen, is that satisfactory explanation?
No,
Okay. All right. So we have to decide what to do here. Okay, it's a jurisdictional
I
issue, so,
think you need to put that sign back up.
okay. Well, if we're concluding that the sign was not up for the time period, then we would have to have the applicant re-advertise.
Exactly.
Sir, when were you last at the property that you can?
Saturday afternoon, 4:30, 5 o'clock, I drove by. I know
So
I
you
drove by
appreciate-
from west to east.
So what the board member is indicating is that it hasn't been continuously posted for the 10 days prior to today, based on her review of the property. Just-
Well, are we sure she was at the right property? It's pretty well, I have a hard time believing it's down from that
I
tree.
walked the whole property, I saw the house, I saw all the materials setting aside for the pool house, I saw it all. And yesterday afternoon, I was there, I stayed at least an hour, examining everything, and looking all over for that sign, but there was no sign.
All right, let's react.
So
Yep,
I don't
yep.
see there should be a big problem.
Yep, yep.
You putting up a sign and coming back, whenever Mr. Grossman tells you it's an appropriate time.
Okay, so we're, based on what Ms. Burgess has indicated, we're gonna re-advertise this one. As long as there are the majority of the board wants to
Yes.
do that. Okay, so,
Is that your motion?
well, actually, we don't have jurisdiction. So at this point, I believe the earliest meeting that we could really hear this application would not be our next meeting, because there wouldn't be enough time. So it would have to be our July 6th meeting, is that correct, Candace?
Yes.
Yeah, so July 6th. So you're gonna have to re-advertise,
You're gonna do it to the 15th,
repost.
just so you know.
Yeah, okay,
I'll be back to look and see that you have your sign up.
okay.
Be waiting
So
for you.
it better be
Okay.
better.
All right, so it is a jurisdictional issue, so, yeah, and so this is what we're doing.
Understood,
Okay,
understood.
all right. Do we, I don't think we need to do a vote on this. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so basically, at this point, it's re-advertised for July, going to be re-advertised for July 6th. I just want to make sure there isn't anyone from the public who's waiting to be heard on this application. This is the application of Truns for property located at 98 South Road in West Hampton. No one in the audience? Is there anyone waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application? If so, this would be the time to let us know by raising your hand, just so I can explain that we're going to be, this application is going to be re-advertised until our July 6th meeting.
May I ask a question?
No one on Zoom.
No need to still email you the photo then, right?
No, at this point, it's a
I
non-issue.
did, because I said I would, I want to make sure.
Okay? Okay?
Good question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Have a good rest of your night.
Thank
Yep, okay.
Item 4 on the agenda is Susan E. Aminoff. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the town code for a proposed two-story addition on a non-conforming lot. 330-11, residential districts table of dimensional regulations for a minimum side yard setback from 20 feet to 14.6 feet, and 330-84D, pyramid law for a sky plane encroachment of 8.68 cubic feet on the east side, and any other relief necessary.
Board's jurisdiction, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
Good evening, board members. Wayne Bruin, O'Shea, Marcinson, and Bruin on behalf of the applicant Susan Aminoff. I will just make one comment about jurisdiction in the second, or the notice. But this is an application on property known as 55 Hildreth Lane in Bridgehampton. It's a flag lot located on the south side of Hildreth Lane, just due west of Halsey Lane. My client purchased the property in 1994, and it is in a residential zone that is split between the R20 zone and the R60 zone. The R60 zone is over the lower portion of the property. About 16% of the property is in the R60 zone. None of the structures are in the R60 zone. The property's 20,733 square feet, and it's totally surrounded by development. It mirrors a flag lot just to the west. The property's improved with a one-story, single-family dwelling, despite the comments from the building inspector. I think you noticed references 2 stories, but it is a one-story building, dwelling erected in 1992, as well as a swimming pool, which was issued a certificate of occupancy in 1994. The applicant proposes an addition of approximately 14 by 20, 280 square feet, to allow a one-story addition on the easterly side of the property, which will include a bedroom, which will be a one-bedroom addition to this currently 2-bedroom residence. The proposed bedroom, and I think you've seen the floor plans, I have them in front. The proposed bedroom is adjacent to an existing bedroom. There's reconfiguration of hallways and bathrooms related to that. There is also a proposed addition on the front, which does not require any variance to enlarge the entryway. The addition requires the following relief. So in the R20 zone, the minimum side yard of 20 feet, and we're seeking to encroach 5.4 feet into that yard for a total setback of 14.6 feet. You'll see on the plans, there's an additional window well with an entryway to the basement. And the applicant, although the basement is unfinished now, the applicant is, while there's concrete work and foundation being done now, they're planning for the future and provide an appropriate ingress and egress to the basement. So that's why that's there. We met with the building inspector, and that being at below grade doesn't require any relief from this board. The other part of the relief, the one-story addition, we provided, just based on the configuration, a small corner of the peak of the roof facing the east requires pyramid relief of about 8.86 or 8.86 or 68 cubic feet. And that's the relief that's necessary. We submitted our petition, the grounds for relief. One of the things we looked at, the architect and our client studied this property in earnest to figure out, how they could do this addition without a variance. The problem they ran into, and you can see on the survey, is on the water line to the property and the septic system are on the northwest side of the property in this vicinity, so it precludes that. The building is set back 64.8 feet from the rear yard, and where the rear yard is 60 feet, so there's only about 4 feet to do the addition, plus the pool is primarily taking up all that spot. And so the easterly side with the internal circulation and otherwise is the most logical place to do that. My client reached out to all her neighbors, and 3 of the neighbors immediately to the west and to the south, and they actually, one party owns 2 separate parcels that are improved, and so there's one letter for those 2 lots, and then the parcel immediately north. We did reach out, she did reach out to our neighbors to the east. They may be here to provide comments, but I can tell you a part about what the discussions are on that. But I have letters for each of the board members. There's several copies there. If you look on the aerial photographs, this lot is typical of the lots in the area. The property, and on the aerial photographs, if you've been to the property, you can see that the boundaries are heavily vegetated. In particular, this northeast row next to the dwelling to the east is large evergreen trees, providing substantial screening. There is one gap in that vegetative screening in the vicinity, more towards the southeasterly corner off of the property, more in the area of where the adjacent pools. If you look at the aerial photographs we provided you, this is a little blow up. You can see our client's property and the pool. It's sort of on a diagonal, and the same thing on the property to the east. Their house is sort of on a diagonal, and the pool is on a diagonal. So the pools sort of come together like that. But the little gap in the vegetation, which is more deciduous and lower vegetation, is in this area, and our client is willing to provide screening, and they express that to the neighbor. In that regard, we got a letter from Martyrs.
Take the pool equipment and the AC unit and get it to a conforming location and see that on the survey, correct?
Well, right now, it's existing, and it was pre-existing when they issued the pool, but if that's the board's desire, then that's a condition of your approval, we'd have to abide by it.
Okay. We want to do that?
What is that?
Yep, you can have them do the pool equipment being conforming?
Sure.
Yeah.
They speak to it.
Yep.
Yeah, she was not planning to move them at all, but, if the construction may alter it, it makes sense. But
Well, no, you're doing a lot of work on that side anyhow.
correct.
Get it done.
Okay.
So if you have any further questions, or if there's any comments.
Minimal relief as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Does, I know this wasn't mentioned, but I don't know if it has any impact on jurisdiction, but this was listed here as proposed two-story addition, and this is a one-story addition. That doesn't have any impact
Well, I think
on this?
your notice was actually suggesting that we were asking for more than what we were actually asking
Right,
for.
so
And
it
so if
shouldn't be a
anybody
problem.
was concerned about the two-story addition, they would be here and actually
Right.
find out that it's only a one-story addition.
Right, right, yeah. I mean, mainly I care about the notice, making clear what the variance relief is. I understand it's a reference to it being 2 stories when it's actually 1 story, but if otherwise, the notice is indicating this is setback relief
setback
and
relief
cubic
and-
feet
Yeah.
feet of pyramid, so.
Okay.
um,
I don't have a problem
Yeah.
with that, I just
Yep, no, I appreciate that.
noticed it and wanted
Yep.
it not to come back and bite us later.
Well, and if Wayne, if you wanted us to re-advertise the application over that issue, just let us know.
May I incorporate Marty's comments
Yes.
into the decision too?
We can do that.
He suggests 6 trees, but I think that the spacing and whatnot might be a little less. My client actually met with Ray Smith from Ray Smith Associates. He thinks it's more like 3 that would fit in that area and grow best, but anywhere, the point is, we're willing to provide the evergreen screening in that space, whatever it takes, 3 to 6 trees.
Do a good job, Ray.
Okay, very good. Okay, any other questions or comments? Is there anyone in the boardroom this evening who would like to be heard in connection with this application, which is the application of Amanoff for property located at 55 Hildreth Lane in Bridgehampton? Is there anyone who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application, which is again for property located at 55 Hildreth Lane in Bridgehampton? If you are waiting to be heard on Zoom, this would be the time to let us know by raising your hand. No one. Okay, if not, Mike, it is yours.
Okay, so we'll close this public hearing, leaving it open for written submissions until June 16th with a decision on July 6th.
Second.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess. Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mrs. Macedonio.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Record time, Wayne. You must have an early tee-off time tomorrow.
Unfortunately, I got a planning board.
Okay, item 6 on the agenda is Jim Lynn Realty, Inc., 47A Lynn Avenue, in Hampton Bays, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-269-2-17.3. Applicant requests relief from the following provisions of the Town Code, 330-116, extension of a non-conforming use as it relates to 330-167B, specific types of variances for a proposed one-story addition and a second-story addition onto a house located on a non-conforming lot with a second dwelling. Applicant requests to construct 683 square feet onto the easterly dwelling, which is currently 1,500 square feet, and 330-115C continuance for a total side yard setback from the existing 24 feet to 23.6 feet, and any other relief necessary.
Board has jurisdiction, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening. Just have to swear you in unless you're an attorney. You can state your name and address for the record.
Andrew Graham, 69 Ridgeway Avenue, Setauket, New York.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay, if you can tell us about the application.
Sure. So we're zoned R40, it's approximately 19,000 square foot parcel. There's 2 houses on the property. There's one up at the street and one up at the rear, down by the bay. The one at the rear is the one we're seeking relief for. It's a 600 square foot addition, first and second floor. Not encroaching a pyramid or coming anywhere near the height restrictions. We're here because, it's a expansion of nonconformity and the additional 0.4 feet of total side yard reduction.
Okay. So with this kind of an application, One of the things is we have what's called a 50% rule on properties where there are multiple structures or where it's non-conforming. So in other words, the maximum expansion of either or both of the two residences can be 50%. So the other thing we're going to need, I didn't see it in the file unless I missed it, is that percentage as to how much of a percentage expansion you're looking for, what that percentage is.
It's 45% of the rear house. That doesn't include the square footage of the front of the house at the street.
Okay.
So I can put that in writing.
So if you can put that in writing, but it needs to be, basically the percentage with both houses combined.
Yeah.
And it can't be more than 50% of what currently is. Or if you go over that 50%, it becomes a different kind of an application, let's put it that way. And it becomes a very difficult application, like use variance difficult. In any case, so we're gonna need that percentage. As long as it's under 50%.
Mr. Chairman, if
Yes.
I may, there was also a 2004 variance.
Okay.
That looks like we'll need that percentage as well.
Sure.
Because your total is 50%.
Right, and if there was a prior
there was a prior.
expansion, then the question is whether when you add those two together, whether it's over 50%. And if it is, then there's a difficulty in terms of the application because of it shifts the standard. Anyway, so we're gonna need that information, but in the meantime, maybe you can tell us a little bit more about why this expansion is needed.
Sure. It's living space, no additional bedrooms in that rear dwelling. It's 3 bedrooms currently. It's 1 story. They're going to relocate 2 of the bedrooms to the 2nd floor, and enlarge all the bedrooms as well as the living room. It's a vacation home. It's his retirement home.
Okay.
So he's got his Board of Health lined up, the town wetlands, every other hoop.
Yep.
Jump through.
Okay.
So
He's putting a new cesspool in?
he is required by the conservation board.
Okay. And just so the applicant understands, basically, the expansion is maxed out at 50%. The only way to eliminate that limitation is to remove the nonconformity. Removing the nonconformity would mean removing one of the structures. So as long as the structures, both you have two residences essentially on a single lot, that 50% limitation remains in effect. So if we're like right at or very close to the 50%, the applicant just needs to understand that's it. If the applicant was looking to do anything else in the future, you'd have to get rid of the nonconformity.
Understood.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so I just wanted to explain all of that. Any other questions from members of the board? Okay. If not, have you heard from any of the neighbors?
No.
Okay. All right. Okay, so we'll find out whether there's anyone here. Want to ask if there's anyone here in the boardroom who would like to be heard in connection with the application of Jim Lynn Realty, Inc. for property located at 47A Lynn Avenue in Hampton Bays. Is there anyone who's waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with this application, which is again for property located at 47A Lynn Avenue in Hampton Bays? If you're waiting to be heard on Zoom, this would be the time to let us know by raising your hand.
No one.
Okay. We do. Okay, this needed to come up.
Sure. It's more of just a comment to.
I understand, but we need to get you on the recording equipment. And I have to swear you in.
Sure.
Okay. So if you can just state your name and address for the record?
Christopher Wall, 4 Oak Lane, Northport, New York.
And do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
I'm sorry, Chris, what is your last name?
Wall, W-A-H-L.
W-A-H-L?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, and I guess you had a question or a comment?
I just wanted to relay something to Andy.
Sure.
When the building department sent over that comment letter, didn't Alessio, the architect, provide that 50% proof of calculation? I'm pretty sure that was part of the pyramid when he added those comments to the drawings.
No, that was the habitable space increase, unfortunately.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and the pyramid and this issue with the 50% rule is, it combines both structures, so it's confusing.
I
but-
got you. I remember
Yeah.
seeing the 50%. I want to make sure we didn't delay it for no
And
reason.
you did have the rule of this space calculation already?
Yeah, he was supposed to. Oh,
This
see,
is-
sure,
it's
they're
not
gonna
on the
prior
plan?
area. This should be on the,
Right,
well, the
right.
habitable
We don't
space
have
for the rear dwelling.
So you didn't have a living space for the front wall? Okay.
It's a confusing piece of property, because
We have to get
Well, they can't hear you from back there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's a unique piece of property, because if you go back through the foil, it was two properties, it was combined into one, it was changed multiple times, so, since I
Yeah.
think the early fifties, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
So
Well,
it's, some references ask for both houses to be involved, some ask for, when we were filing for a building permit on the original house, we ran into that problem frequently, where was the back house related to it or not? So-
Right. Yeah, the concern, from my perspective, is that there was a prior expansion. So the question is whether, between the prior expansion and what you're looking to do now, whether we're over that 50%.
No, that's fine, and I apologize for interrupting. I
Yeah,
just
that's
wanted to miss
okay.
the opportunity if that
Yeah,
calculation was done.
okay, thank you for your comments, I appreciate it. So in any case, we're just gonna need this information.
Of course.
And if it's under 50%, we're good. If it's over 50%,
For bed.
then we got an issue, because we're gonna need to have it either below 50%, or then it shifts to a very, very difficult standard.
All right, what do you guys want to do? You want me to close this, or you want to bring them back?
We need to bring back.
Bring them back so we can find out
Yeah,
what the
see,
prior,
bring it back. And
what
I
the
would like to
prior
see some
bank-
plans. Like, that, I found this application to be a little insufficient for my purposes, to be honest with you. I felt like I really had like there was no sense of what we were really talking about. I don't think the survey was enough for me.
Okay. Do you have plans, or have plans?
Plans are
to-
submitted, I have an abbreviated set just for my own reference here.
That's
but-
fine, but if you
You
could.
could submit those.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll move to
Oh,
leave
that-
this open.
And then the question is, when do you think you can come back and have this information? Because our July 6th is full, so basically it's
we'll-
either the
we'll work
next,
for you.
next meeting or the second meeting in July.
Let's not do let's do the second one in July. I don't
Okay.
think we'll be ready in 2 weeks.
Okay.
That is,
7:20, I think.
7:20.
okay, we're gonna leave this open for all purposes to our July 20th meeting.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Tudhill.
All right,
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you for being here. Have a good rest of your night.
okay, item 7 under re-advertised applications. Bridgehampton Fields LLC, 2 Windy Lane in Bridgehampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-36-2-16.6.
Okay, good evening.
Board of jurisdiction.
Okay,
Good evening.
good evening. I think I had, let me see, we just re-advertised this, so you
Yeah.
can just, I guess, tell us about the application.
Okay, so, when we were here last time, we talked about the adjacent lot, and our building inspector appeal. A lot of the factors are really identical, so I'm gonna try not to be too repetitive since it was very recently. So this application is for variance relief of 9 feet to allow a tennis court to be located 16 feet from the southwesterly property line. There is the required principal building side yard setback of 25 feet. The structure is in the rear of the house. The tennis court does comply with the accessory structure setbacks. And if you agree with our view on the appeal, it would eliminate the need for this variance request. So we don't anticipate any undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood or any detriment to nearby properties. The only, affected property, and I put this in quotes, I hope that's not too obnoxious, there's a common driveway area that's 60 feet wide right next to it. So I don't think any passing cars would be affected, and frankly, our client owns all of those properties. So he's obviously okay with it. Anyone using the driveway is unlikely to be affected by tennis court noise, and even to further address that, it is proposed to be sunk in. At the last meeting, I did submit an aerial showing that there are 15 tennis courts right in the immediate area. The benefits sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by any other method. The current proposal is the only feasible location on the lot and has the least amount of impact. The applicant purchased and designed these lots having relied on the previous interpretation of the code. And if the board does not agree with our appeal, we believe it's an equitable result to have variance relief. The requested variance is small, given that the owner is also the impacted property, and it's a 60-foot driveway next to it. We expect no adverse impacts. I don't have much more to say other than the alleged difficulty is not self-created, as it's a result of the change in the interpretation of 33076D.
Yes, which we went over during the last public hearing.
Yeah.
So basically, you're looking for either us doing an interpretation that we disagree with the determination of the building inspector as to which is the side yard and which is the rear yard, or relief to allow, if we agree with the building inspector, to grant variance relief for the tennis court to be located in the side yard. Would that be correct? So basically, it's one or the other. And I know at the last hearing, we had back and forth about the frustrations of a change in policy in terms of the way in which the building department handles this particular issue. So we have that information on the record, and I guess we just have to figure out what to do.
Okay. I will note that I was contacted by a handful of other local attorneys who are interested, of course, in the outcome of this appeal. I know one put in some letters today. I don't know if you saw them.
The local attorneys watch very closely what we do for some reason. I don't know why.
I can't imagine, we have, our office is in East Hampton, that's where the bulk of our practice is, but, even we were familiar with this interpretation, and notably, the zoning booklet is still on the website that explains how the previous interpretation was interpreted, if that makes any sense. So,
Okay. And, as I probably indicated last time, we look at these, an application when it comes to the interpretation, as if we're looking at it for the first time, even though there was a determination of the building inspector. So sometimes, the building inspector, chief building inspector may make an interpretation, but we get additional information that the building inspector didn't have. And so, we consider what you submit, and we look at it, and we'll make a determination one way or the other.
okay.
Yeah.
We appreciate that it's not an easy decision to make, but, when there's a zoning code change, people are noticed of it, and they understand it, and they can advise their clients of it, and people make decisions on purchases and designs based on that. So changing an interpretation without any sort of grace period doesn't really have that same benefit for the community.
Okay, and I appreciate that.
And if I may, just briefly.
Sure.
I know we're here right now, this application that's noticed is 2 Windy Hill, not 4. So do you need us to restate our position in this application?
We could incorporate your comments in one application.
Yeah, I don't want to waste anybody's time here, but I want to make sure we have a proper
As
record.
a matter of fact, let me see, I remember that we have the other application.
Yeah, that should be on next.
Yep, yep.
It was next.
Once on the last calendar, right?
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Sure.
So assuming that the board does adopt your interpretation, how do you, for these particular applications, how do you reconcile that 83C speaks to accessory buildings in the rear yard? And right now, you're talking about a tennis court, which is a structure.
Because it's open to the sky.
Correct, but there's a separate definition for a building and a separate definition for a structure. And 83C only speaks to buildings,
Yeah, but
not
accessory
structures.
buildings block the passage of air and light. Structures don't.
Well, I think my concern is that you want to rely on the plain meaning of the code, and I appreciate that, and I think the board is hearing you. But if you're going to rely on the plain meaning of the code, then you have to rely on the language that's there. And the language that's there would suggest that you actually, notwithstanding that the board adopts your interpretation, would still need a variance for a tennis court, because that's a structure, not a building.
Oh, I don't think that's true at all.
Yeah, and I think the current interpretation by the building department and by the town board recently in their adoption of the additional coverage is that tennis courts are allowed in that area. I mean, it's even referenced in the town board legislation that the rear yard coverage is to allow tennis courts, pools, and other
Well-
structures in that area.
But that's a little different than what we're talking about here. So 83C, and your submission pretty clearly states this, which is nicely laid out for the board. 83C says every part of a required yard shall be open to the sky, except for accessory buildings in a rear yard. But a tennis court is not an accessory building, right? It's a structure. So arguably, when you still need, even if this board adopted your interpretation, wouldn't you still need relief from 83C for that tennis court?
No, because we weren't rejected under that code provision.
That's what it was noticed for.
And I don't think that code provision applies at all.
Okay.
I mean, I think it was probably written in error, but when you talk about the difference
the code
between
provision.
accessory buildings and accessory structures, accessory buildings block light and air. That's why you wouldn't want them in those required yards. Accessory structures are at grade. A tennis court is at grade, a patio is at grade.
Oh, I appreciate that. But again, the plain language of 83C says buildings, not structures, whereas 76D speaks to buildings and structures.
Well, so does 77D. That talks about buildings and structures located in the required rear yard of a main building.
Right.
So.
You're not required right now, right? You're just talking about rear yard for the tennis court.
Right, but you're saying we would be in the required, isn't that what you're saying?
No, I'm just wondering why you wouldn't need relief notwithstanding the board adopting your interpretation, because a tennis court is not a building, and the exception under 83C is for buildings.
But it's for buildings in a required yard.
No, actually, that's the opposite of what your local practitioners and you have argued. It's buildings in a rear yard.
And I think we're getting lost between these definitions here.
If you could refer to
Because,
Mr. Bennett's letter.
sure, well, 83C.
Well, we didn't write his letter.
I know you didn't, but if you're suggesting that you agree with his interpretation.
Says every
I did not
part.
suggest I agree with his interpretation. He asked me if I objected to him submitting a letter, and I did not. He has every right to.
It says every part of 83C says every part of a required yard shall
Yes.
be open to the sky.
Yes.
But where this between the tennis court and the house, or where the tennis court is, that is just rear yard.
Agree.
Not required rear yard.
I don't disagree with you, David.
Okay,
But
so
this
I'm
doesn't
not,
say, because it doesn't say in a required rear yard, it says in a rear yard.
what are you reading that I'm not
The
sure.
rest of the phrase, so every part of a required rear yard, a required yard
Mhm.
shall be open to the sky, except for retaining walls and for accessory buildings in a rear yard. It doesn't say a required rear yard. It just says in a rear yard.
I think you're straining to read the required out of the first half of that sentence.
Okay, that's
That's-
interesting, because that's exactly, actually, Mr. Bennett articulates, and I think the local practitioners are articulating, that it doesn't say required rear yard, and that the board was allowing you to put it in the rear yard.
It's my understanding and my argument that the required, where we're arguing is that the required side yard is where the word required is. And the required side yard is only next to the house, not about the rear yard. Anything behind the house is the rear yard, and we're saying that the interpretation that the principal building side yard extends beyond that is where it doesn't say required.
No, I
That's
appreciate
my
it.
argument, our argument.
I just wanted to take care of a housekeeping
Sure.
thing. I don't mean to interrupt the. Can you call the next application, which is the adjacent property, and then we'll incorporate this public hearing and the prior one for
All right,
both?
So this was 2.
Yes.
Windy Hill.
Yes.
Question, if you, and Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, with the second application, the setback relief or something is a little different, is that accurate? That's only, the appeal part is basically the same?
Yeah.
So we had, at the last meeting, we had submitted revised site plans to change the relief. So we're asking for less relief now.
Right, but on 4 Windy Lane, are you asking for relief for the tennis court, other than the appeal? I just didn't know if you want to incorporate it too, if the other one has a different relief along with it.
Well, we could talk about it.
That didn't change,
separately
the
in
relief on,
testimony.
the relief on 2 did not change. It was only the relief on
No,
4.
it's a 104.
Oh, Well, so for, let's see, for 2, it's 9 feet. And for 4, bear with me. That doesn't say. Is 12 feet, so it is different.
Yeah, so we could just have them go over, you know, the difference between the two applications, but have it be a combined public hearing, unless you think there's a reason not to do that. Yeah.
I think that's fine.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so I'll call it that, all right? So I'm
Okay.
gonna call 1127 Noyak Path LLC, 4 Windy Hill Lane in Bridgehampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 900-36-2-16.7. Good luck, Adam.
Okay, so the idea is we're trying to
Get 'em, man.
incorporate both what we've discussed in both public hearing records, but there are some differences in terms of the variance relief being requested, if that's where the application ends up going, between 2 Windy Hill Lane and 4 Windy Hill Lane. So maybe you can just briefly go over, I know you mentioned it before, we can just, once again, just go over the differences between the two applications.
So for 4 Windy Hill Lane, we need greater setback relief. The proposed tennis court is 7.8 feet from that southwesterly property line.
Okay.
And for 2 Windy Hill, it's 16 feet from the southwesterly property line.
Okay, but other than that, in terms of the interpretation, the arguments are essentially the same, or are there any differences between the one and the other in terms of your
None whatsoever.
arguments on that? Okay. Okay.
At the last meeting, Stephen Grossman had appeared. I had several conversations with him, and we've agreed to plantings or, whatever he likes. I don't know if he's here tonight, maybe he'll.
Okay, we'll find out.
He was up there.
We'll find out. Okay.
Cool, Dan?
Yeah,
Is it still proposed to sink
David?
it?
You all right?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
okay. All right. Any other questions, members of the board? Does not appear to be anyone who's in the boardroom. Is there anyone who is waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with these two applications that are being heard simultaneously? This is the application of Bridgehampton Fields LLC for 2 Windy Hill Lane in Bridgehampton, and the application 1127 Noyak Path LLC for 4 Windy Hill Lane in Bridgehampton. If there's anyone who is waiting to be heard on Zoom in connection with either application, this would be the time to let us know by raising your hand.
We have one.
Okay.
I thought we'd hear from him.
Oh, yeah.
There he is.
Hi, Steve, can you hear us? Well, we can't hear you. Need to unmute.
How about now?
Now we
There
can hear
we
you.
go.
Okay, so you probably heard the conversation that took place. I don't know if you have any, we'd like to have your comments.
Well, again, my client strenuously objects to the tennis court at number 4. He actually was approached by the owner of the property who said that he would do anything to mitigate any problems, including screening. And, well, we know that, but I don't know, I have my noise person look at that, whether screening would really affect. But my client doesn't want it. He believes that it hurts his privacy. So, but what can I say?
Who's talking again?
He's been there for a long, long time. And yes, they put that next time they asked him tennis court. He does, but it has been used in maybe 10, 12 years.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Steve, how close is the proposed tennis court to your client's property and residence? How close is it?
I don't know.
I can answer that.
Okay, well, that's rather important, because if it's hundreds of feet away, then that's one thing. If it's very close, that would be something different.
So he said he objects to 4, which is further away, but that's 2. And it's over 1,000 feet from the property line and his own tennis court.
Just about 9, as far as we can scale it out from the county's GIS, it's 990 feet from our property line to his residence. And our tennis court is, what, another 40 or 50 feet within the property. So there's,
And he
it's
has
over,
a te- he
it's
has
over
a-
1,000 feet to his house, and his
He has
tennis
a
court's
tennis court?
in his
He has
backyard.
a tennis court, and he's on the
No.
northeast side. We're asking for relief from the southwest side.
Right, we're not asking for relief from his property line.
Okay, so this little map, you're the 990.4 feet is
Yep.
yours? Okay.
Council, but I haven't had an opportunity to verify it myself.
Okay, well,
I mailed him
He
surveys.
confirmed for me if he's speaking about 2 Windy Hill or 4 Windy Hill, so I have no-
Steve,
This property-
is the application that you're concerned about two Windy Hill Lane or 4 Windy Hill Lane?
4,
And the address of your client?
that's the, Marvin Shanky, what's his address?
Yes.
4 Windy Hill Lane. That's where the notice was sent.
No,
No,
what's
but-
your client's address?
I'm sorry,
What is your client's address?
4 Windy Hill Lane.
No, that's the property in question. Your your client who's opposing the 4 Windy Hill Lane,
4 is 16.7.
what is their address?
His address?
Yeah.
Give me a moment.
He's here.
The application was sent to at
This is 4.
4 Windy Hill Lane.
The address for the application is 4 Windy Hill Lane. So the applicant, which is 1127 Noyak Path LLC, their address is 4 Windy Hill Lane in Bridgehampton.
I have to get that.
Okay, and also in Bridgehampton, by the way, they don't deliver anything to physical addresses, only PO boxes.
Right.
I only have his city address.
I will submit that.
Okay, okay. We just want to know how close your client is to the proposed tennis court.
Well, they say 900. I don't know, I have to verify. Look at that myself.
Okay, but your client also has his own tennis court?
Yeah, but it hasn't been used. He would just,
From
it's very,
Millstone, and Windy Hill was kind of just created. It's
but it's not, it isn't used by anybody in this town.
Okay, and also, Ms. Cooley had indicated that you had discussions with her about screening.
Yes,
Okay, was there any progress in terms of what screening would be perhaps,
Well,
acceptable?
her client, I believe, said he would screen it with trees. He would do whatever screening,
It's a nice
his
offer.
exact words, according to my comment, was he would do all the screening that's necessary to mitigate the noise.
Okay, so sometimes what we do is we have people, have the surveyor prepare or someone else prepare a screening plan that maybe both sides can agree upon with
Yeah,
particular
that's-
screening.
I think that's appropriate.
But that requires both sides to be willing to do that. I do not know whether both sides are willing to do that.
Look, we would look at a screening plan and evaluate the effect it would have on my client.
I'm okay with it, so I don't. Right. It's
Okay.
1,000 feet away.
Is there anything else you wanted to add, Steve?
No,
Okay. All right. So, we have a neighbor that is, unhappy. All I can say is that I think, it's always a good thing for neighbors, when possible, to get along with each other.
My client intends to live at this subdivision, and that's why he made such a generous offer as I will plant anything you want. And I've sent surveys via email, I sent surveys via mail. So without just a little feedback, it's a little hard for me to propose the moon.
And maybe you and Steve, Mr. Grossman, who's not related to me, as I indicated the last time, we're not related. We're not, no relation. Can communicate about what, language about what screening, I mean, it could be, I mentioned the screening plan, but it also could be, an agreement, particular, kinds of plantings that is put into the decision as part of, a resolution to the neighbor's concerns.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay, which is separate apart from.
1,000 feet away, he's got a tennis court, I don't know what even waste our time.
I mean, frankly, there's huge
I don't have
trees
a
there
problem with
already,
either one of
but,
them.
I agree. I don't have a problem with either one of them.
Well, on the other
plant
hand,
beside it.
then the applicant offered, so, the applicant offered.
I thought Mr. Grossman had said his client really didn't care about screening.
He objects to it in
He
concept.
did mention that. Well, if his client's not worried about screening, I'm certainly not worried about screening.
Okay, well-
Especially if he's 1,000 feet away,
Right,
900 feet away, whatever it is.
yeah, okay.
Please.
Privacy.
All right, so we'll.
Enough already. Move on.
So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna close the application, and then I'm hoping there'll be communication, and if not, we'll just render a decision, but, we've had a discussion about what the options are.
I always answer my
Will they
phone, so
present a
thank you.
screening plan?
Just
Not to the board.
Oh, yeah, so Steve asked if you would forward a screening plan to him.
I will.
okay.
She said she will. Okay? All right. Okay, so,
This is yours, Adam.
it's mine. So I will move that both applications, this is for Bridgehampton Fields LLC and 1127 Noack Path LLC, be closed this evening except for written submissions. The deadline for written submissions will be June 16th, and those written submissions can include what we've just discussed, possible screening plan, possible any agreement between the applicant and the neighbor. And
Are
then,
you looking for Mr. Grossman to submit the distance between his client and?
yes,
Yes.
Okay.
And
yes.
his address.
Yeah, so we want,
Address.
so Steve, if you can give us your client's address and the distance,
Yeah, I'll send you,
the distance between where the tennis court is proposed at 4 Windy Hill Lane and where your client's property and particularly residents are. Okay.
well, his residence, is a gate, you want his actual building, or you want his?
Yeah,
just a regular
where he
address.
lives, where he lives, the actual, residence.
address.
I think it's on Millstone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It-
All right, so, and we would want this information by end of business on June 16th, and we will have a decision ready at our July 6th meeting.
Second.
Mr. Daly,
Aye.
Ms. Kern,
Aye.
Ms. Burgess, Mr. Leonard,
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio,
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you for being here.
Thank you all.
Have a good rest of your night.
You too.
Okay, and number 9, which is gonna be the last item on the agenda this evening, is 626 Dune Road in West Hampton. Suffolk County Tax Map 900-391-1-34. This is a holdover.
And with that.
Okay, I have some revised plans. I have 2 full-size and some reduced copies. I don't
Okay.
know what you want.
You can give me one of them, Suzanne. And give it to John. Give the stamp one to John.
This is,
Yep.
yep.
Here you go, buddy.
That's it? We only have 10 more?
We only have one more, and we're gonna need more.
We have reduced.
I have 2 full-size ones, and then I have
Yeah,
like
because
The reduction, man.
Katie's probably gonna need
Full-size,
another full size.
I have one.
You keep
One full-size goes to the lead, the other full size go in the file.
Yes, that's what we did.
All right, so what'd you do about the 12,000?
Yes, Susan, I'm
You
sorry.
know, neither Helen or I are able to access those plans.
I know.
So anyhow, I want that to be considered when we talk about timing on this application.
Okay.
Okay.
What are you doing about 12,000 cubic feet of relief?
We,
What have you done?
what we did was we chopped off the attic, just to remind the board our,
One in the box.
I'll give it to Susie, she wants a copy of it. I'll give it to Susie.
Sorry,
it's okay, I just know I'm difficult to hear, so I just want to make sure there's no background.
be sure to drown me.
Your husband doesn't say that.
He's a lot louder than I am. Okay, so this, just to remind you, is on Dune Road in West Hampton on the bay side, very close to wetlands. There's an existing one-story house. We are proposing a second story on top of the existing one-story. It's a lot that's 50 feet wide. So we were initially requesting 12,221 cubic feet of pyramid relief, and you told us to do better. So what we have done is taken away the attic and gone from a traditional A-frame to a flat roof, which brings the pyramid relief requested, if it's just flat roof without the attic, brings it down to a total of, sorry, across the page.
Tell us the truth.
I'm sorry. It's 7,955 cubic feet.
8,000.
7,955.
Yeah, 8,000.
7,000. It's a lot.
It is still a lot. I have copies of variances that this board approved for other lots that are 50 feet wide. And I can submit these.
Feel free to submit.
You've issued variances for 10,067 cubic feet, 14,415 cubic feet, 20,972 cubic feet, 11,940.
Was that this board?
Yes, this is Southampton Zoning Board of Appeals.
No, what year was those?
Okay, 2016, 2000,
That was 7 years ago, right?
Yes.
Yes.
What do you have that's current?
well, these are all right, 2018, that's 5 years ago.
Because you have heard the current view of this board over
Okay.
and over and over again.
Those are current.
I mean, 2018 is not that long ago, and this
Oh,
is,
really? That's 5 years ago, right?
so, anyway, I will submit these. These are all lots that are similar in size to the subject property and have the same width. These are all 50-foot wide lots. Our subject property is 50 feet wide, so.
There may be other differences between this application and others. Is what was saying.
We're gonna have to define that.
Right.
Susanna, have you found any cases in the last year or two that have similar sizes?
I have not. I haven't done an extensive search of the entire town, but these are just ones that I was familiar with. And they're similar lot width.
To reduce this number?
Any on Dune Road or no?
None that I could find on Dune Road. Again, this,
Sag Harbor. Noyak. Noyak.
I don't believe there are many lots that are this narrow on Dune Road. At least not that don't have pre-existing structures.
Go over the other side, to the ocean side, take a look there.
The ocean side?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Come on, they're on top of each other
This,
there.
well, this is also just outside of West Hampton Dunes, where all the houses, I mean, it's as if zoning doesn't exist there. I know that's not your jurisdiction, but when you speak to the character of the neighborhood,
West Hampton Beach, West Hampton, Newton, and back to West Hampton.
yeah.
What Gary created.
So eliminating, I think that was one of the board members' suggestion, what if you eliminate the attic completely? So that's what they've done. The ceilings here are 8 feet. I guess that's what I was thinking of on my other application.
Tell me the truth.
I'm telling you the truth, it's right here. 8 foot for proposed second, existing first floor, 8 foot. So without,
The house that's just to the west, it looks higher. If I look at the photos.
it probably is. We are not requesting a height variance. We're actually below. We're only going to elevation 32 now, where we're allowed 42. So again, this is 10 feet below the allowable height if pyramid were not an issue. And just to remind you, our real hardship beyond the width of the lot is the fact that the existing structure is at an elevation that's higher than the required. And I would not recommend going lower. It's an existing structure, it's got sturdy piles, and
I think it's around 11, 12, I think, right?
14.5 is
Where
what
9 is required?
correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so we scrutinize the pyramid applications these days. And it could be that 5 years ago, or 4 years ago, or 8 years ago, we did less of that. So one, and as I actually mentioned to Bob, sometimes there may be other factors that may be different between one property and another that may be distinguish one application from another. I understand you can just look at the bottom line number and consider it to be similar. The fact that the I guess lot width is similar is certainly a factor, but there may have been other factors involved in those other applications.
I think if you look at them, they're very similar. The lot width is 50 feet. They're close to wetlands. They're very constrained. There already were homes there. So
Okay.
I thought it was relevant. I thought I should submit those as an example of similar projects. I realize each project is different. I think this is unique because of the existing structure that we're adding on to. And when we went to the Conservation Board, they made a big deal about us keeping the existing structure. If we have to lower the structure, which I would never recommend in a flood zone near the ocean, in an area that floods, in a year where we're likely to have new FEMA regulations at some point.
Yeah, and that's one of the considerations, and there are several. So I mean, my sense of it is, I don't know that the applicant's willing to do any more beyond where we are right now. I do not know whether there are 4 votes to grant the relief or not. But Susanna, you can let us figure out what to do, or if you want to talk to your client about whether there's any ability to reduce the pyramid relief amount further, you could do that as well. It's your call.
Anything from neighbors?
I don't think there's any objection from neighbors. We haven't heard anything. I know we've spoken to at least one of the neighbors, the neighbor to the west, I believe, who has no objection.
Helen, you want to say anything else?
But it gets back to the theory that when one buys a small lot and one knows the different constraints, maybe not everybody can have a second story. And so it's a familiar story, and what are we supposed to do so somebody can have a second story that when they purchased the property, they knew there'd probably be a problem with getting a second story. So, I'm not in favor, I mean, as you can tell. And I think that maybe it should be 1.5 story. I don't know. I'm not the architect. I mean, I think one has to say a certain maximum encroachment and then go back and from that number work backwards. to give something that's a little bit more reasonable. That's just my,
And I have a comment. I think also what complicates it for me is the fact that it's a 5-bedroom house.
exactly.
I was gonna ask, what is going in that second story?
The second story has 3 bedrooms and a master
Okay,
with
Okay. Right.
2 bathrooms. And then on the first floor is a guest bedroom along with an in-suite bathroom and then a great room, a dinette, kitchen, foyer, mechanical room. I just think that I understand the constraints to the property, but I also think they want a 5-bedroom house on a very restricted piece of land.
Yeah, I think that's Helen's point.
Yes, I agree. I agree very, very strongly, I do.
No, we couldn't tell.
John, is that you?
I know, yeah, I'm Keith. I just turned into Keith.
You're mine.
I agree as well. It's too much.
It's too much, okay.
So we got 4 right there,
Yeah, so it sounds like we don't have 4 votes that we need.
right now.
Um,
And I appreciate the fact that a lot of effort was put into reducing the pyramid, but it is not enough to
Absolutely.
get 4 votes at this
All
time.
right, knocked it down 30-40%, that's all they did.
What was that, Keith?
Possible.
Then we knocked it down, you know.
Cost, it's just rubber tape.
Don't put that on
that. I
that.
think you're over because of the 14 feet, not the 9.
Yeah, the fact that we are
14 feet. not
14 and a
9.
half feet instead of 9 is the problem. It's not a big house. I think the footprint is like 1,500 square feet.
So have it
It's
built at 9, it wouldn't even be an issue.
well, we would still need a variance,
Not as much.
but
No,
not as
yeah,
much.
not as much.
Not as much.
Yeah.
But I would have trouble asking them to make their house lower.
Yeah.
No,
Cutting the
yeah, I
piles,
understand.
I mean,
No,
I
I'm not
think
saying
it,
that, just.
No.
Oh, that's,
Yeah.
you could have a disaster with that. You don't want to do
Correct.
that. What about elongating? Is there any possibility for moving out instead of up?
well, we're working with the existing footprint. The sanitary system does take up a lot of the front yard. I'm just looking for the survey.
Yeah, the house next door seems to be longer. And then also the pool.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at what's
Yeah.
next door, it's hard to
Here it
imagine
is.
that they can't get a second story.
Yeah. The other one.
Might let them go this far up,
Susanna, you know, when you say it's a small house, rather small house, I mean, it has a great room on the first floor, right? If
Yes.
somebody is thinking of it as a small house, does one maybe not have room for a great room, and that space could be used for a bedroom or 2, depending on how the space on the first floor is allocated? Maybe the whole thing has to be looked at again, the whole first floor.
Well, we-
You know, I don't think that we should really be trying to design a house for Susanna. I think she got the point that.
I agree.
Yeah,
At least some of us are concerned about the pyramid relief request and the fact that this is a compromised piece of property and, you know, not everything can be built on compromised pieces of property. So, you know, that's my opinion at this point.
I agree. I'm sorry for even suggesting that.
well, I had hoped that eliminating the whole attic structure would reduce the pyramid more, but it was a fairly shallow attic as it was. Someone had asked whether we could elongate the house. We absolutely can't go closer to the water. Our wetland setback is something like 16 feet. And the septic system, the way it's currently designed, which is, I think, the best design, using the pressurized shallow drain fields is probably the most environmentally friendly. The Conservation Board does not like us to bring in fill, so this is a much better way to prevent, causing runoff on other properties and disrupting floodways. They could go out a little bit where they currently have proposed porch, but that is about it.
So if
So
you
we
can.
could look at that,
Okay.
and/or reducing the size of the second story.
Right.
That's really the only thing that can
Yeah.
be done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
All right, so, I guess the only other
Back to the
question is,
drawing board.
back to the drawing board, and when, I wanna see if there's anyone from the public first, but then I'll ask you, when you wanna come back. Any other comments? Is there anyone, there's no one in the audience, is there anyone who, here on Zoom, who's waiting to be heard in connection with the application of Presta? This is for property located at 626 Dune Road in West Hampton. If you're waiting to be heard on Zoom, this would be the time to let us know by raising your hand.
No one on Zoom.
No one on Zoom, okay. So I guess the question is, when do you want to come back? This is some work to be done.
7:20?
Motion.
7-6 is packed
Paul?
at this point.
Yeah.
Okay. 7:20, I'll take it.
Okay.
Okay.
So I move to keep the hearing open and adjourn to 7:20.
Second.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Ms. Kern?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
All right.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Susanna. Have a good rest of your night.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks.
Thanks for the variances.
Okay. I have some decisions, so we'll get started. Okay, first decision, yes.
Can we put McCabe on the same night, 7:20?
Can you go back and change?
We
the
could,
date on
we'd have
the
to
other
set the
application?
reopen, and we can do that. Okay, so I'll make a motion to reopen the application of McCabe.
Second.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
I-
Ms. Kern?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it. What did we reopen?
We're reopening the McCabe application, which was the other application Susanna had on, so we can put it both on the same date.
Okay, yes, okay.
Okay. Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Okay, so we had previously adjourned the McCabe application until 7/6. So I'll move that we change that date from 7/6 to 7/20.
Second.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Ms. Kern?
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Did
Thank you.
anybody from the public,
I don't think anybody answered that one.
what was that guy worried about?
That was
That was
Bishop.
case
That was a
That was
different
case
case,
number
yeah,
one.
it was case number one.
Yeah.
Adjourned.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Okay,
Right.
on to decisions. All right, first one I have is the decision on the application of Dean W. Van Tassel. This is for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-376-129. This application is for property located at 143 South Road, West Hampton. Applicant seeks variances for a two-lot subdivision. This application passes the standards set forth in New York State Town Law and the Town Code. Therefore, this board grants relief from Town Code 33011, Residential Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations, for a proposed two-lot subdivision. For proposed Lot 1, a lot area of 30,274 square feet where 40,000 square feet is required. And for proposed Lot 2, a lot area of 29,757 square feet where 40,000 square feet is required. And a lot width of 134.25 feet where 150 feet is required. As shown on the survey prepared by David H. Fox, surveyor, last dated March 3rd, 2023. Granted, the foregoing relief is subject to such other conditions and premises applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to acquire for final approval of the subject premises, including 1, obtaining certificates for all structures/buildings on the premises, and 2, the acquisition of any necessary development rights, PBCs, prior to final approval from the Southampton Town Planning Board.
Second.
Mr. Leonard?
Aye.
Mr. Daly?
Aye.
Ms. Kern?
Aye.
Ms. Burgess?
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio?
Aye.
Mr. Tuttle?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I next have a determination in the matter of the application of Samir and Kelly Bhopal. This is for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-129-1, 2.32. This application is for property located at 51 White Oak Lane, Tuckahoe. Applicants request variances for a swimming pool on a non-conforming lot burdened by wetlands where this board had previously granted a side yard setback of 22.5 feet. This application is consistent with what was previously approved and passes the standards set forth in New York State Town Law and the Town Code. Therefore, this board grants relief from the following provisions of the Town Code for a proposed swimming pool. Town Code 33011, Residence Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations for an accessory side yard setback of 20 feet where 30 feet is required. And Town Code 33076D, Placement of Accessory Building Structures and Uses in All Districts. And Town Code 33083C, Yards, to allow the swimming pool to be located within the required minimum side yard for the principal building, as shown on the survey prepared by Barilski Land Surveying, last revised January 14, 2022. This decision is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant has already acquired or may otherwise have to require for final approval of the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonia.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard. Aye. Chair votes aye. And next, we have a determination on the application of North Phillips Property LLC. This is Susan Bristow applicant for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-350-386. This application was made by Susan Bristow challenging the April 4, 2022 letter and email from Ryan Murphy, Town Code Compliance and Energy Management Administrator, regarding property located at 91 North Phillips Avenue, Spionk. This decision only addresses the ZBA's jurisdiction over the application. While the Southampton Town Code does set forth unique instances where the Zoning Board of Appeals has original jurisdiction, this appeal comes to the board by way of New York State Town Law, which sets forth in 267B, entitled Permitted Action by the Boards, the following: orders, requirements, decisions, interpretations, determinations. The Board of Appeals may reverse or affirm, wholly or partly, or may modify the order, requirement, decision, interpretation, or determination appealed from, and shall make such order, requirement, decision, interpretation, or determination as in its opinion ought to have been made in the matter by the administrative official charged with the enforcement of such ordinance or local law, and to that end shall have all the powers of the administrative official from whose order, requirement, decision, interpretation, or determination the appeal is taken. I just want to go back to the beginning. It said challenging the decision dated April 4th, April 4th, 2022. No, that's correct. Okay. Based on the evidence and testimony before the board, it is clear that the April 4th, 2022 letter, is it April 2022 or April or 2023?
No, it was last
2022.
It was last year, okay. Letter from Mr. Murphy addressed to whom it may concern serves as an update regarding the actions taken by the property owner with respect to the premises to remedy certain conditions in violation to the satisfaction of the Department of Public Safety, and not as an appealable determination. Likewise, the email sent by Mr. Murphy confirms to the property owner that Janice Shearer agrees that the auto repair shop is an approved pre-existing non-conforming use. These writings, particularly taken together with the applicant's testimony that she regularly called code enforcement to report violations and for inspections, and her action in the Supreme Court, indicate to this board that Mr. Murphy's email and letter were made in the context of reporting whether code violations remained on the premises. In other words, Mr. Murphy was confirming compliance with the town code at the time the correspondence was written. Had Mr. Murphy found noncompliance, a violation or notice of violation would have been issued, and that determination could be reviewed by this board or disputed in justice court. Conversely, however, code enforcement officers do not have an instrument or order to issue when compliance is found. Instead, action is simply not taken against the property owner and/or pending charges can be dismissed. The role of a code enforcement officer is different from that of a building inspector, since building inspectors will issue building permits, certificates of compliance, or certificates of occupancy when town code compliance is confirmed, and deny such where there is nonconformance, triggering the most common appellate review by this board. Under this set of facts and circumstances, this board finds that neither the letter nor the email invoke the jurisdiction of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Second.
Mr. Macedonia.
Aye.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Ms. Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
No.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Next, I have a determination in the matter of the application of the Andrea Rothbert 2015 Family Irrevocable Trust for property located at Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-102-3. I think there's something missing in the tax map number. Yeah, I think 900-102-3. Looks like the lot number's not there.
It's 910-2-3.
Oh, that's what it is. 900-10-2-3, thank you. Okay, this application is for property located at 129 Northside Drive, Noyak. Applicant here seeks variances for a proposed hot tub and roof overhang over an existing deck. This application passes the standards set forth in New York State Town Law and the Town Code. Therefore, this board grants relief from the following provisions of the Town Code. 1, for the proposed roof over portion of existing deck, relief from Town Code 33011, Residential Districts Table of Dimensional Regulations, for a total side yard setback of 52.9 feet where 60 feet is required. And 2, for the proposed hot tub, relief from Town Code 33011, for an accessory side yard setback of 18.5 feet where 20 feet is required. Town Code 33076D, placement of accessory buildings, structures, and uses in all districts, and Town Code 33083C yards, to allow the hot tub to be placed within the required minimum side yard for the principal building. These variances are granted for buildings/structures as shown on the survey prepared by Squires, Holden, Weisenbacher, and Smith, last revised May 18, 2023. Granted, the foregoing relief is subject to such other conditions and permits as applicant is required or may otherwise have to require for final approval of the subject premises.
Second.
Mr. Leonard.
Aye.
Mr. Daly.
Aye.
Ms. Burgess.
Aye.
Ms. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Macedonio.
Aye.
Mr. Tudhill.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. I think that's all I have.
We have.
Okay.
Aye.
Motion to close.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.